Right, so I'm almost done with the body and the internal edges. I can't erase too much more from this chicken wing because I don't have a lot of overlap there. But I'm going to show you how we can fix that with a different tool after I've done these. So, but this chicken wing, I need to blend that. So what do I start with? Image adjustments. I will keep recommending using image adjustments first before you erase, because it will make the erasing easier, and it will make it easier for you to see what looks good if you already match the lighting and color in a general way. So I'm going to go to levels, push it left or right. I'm going to push it brighter, but I'm going to limit the highlights because it's a little too strong. Then I'm going to go to color balance, take out some of that red and that yellow in the lighting, which looks good for fried food but doesn't match the white balance of the chicken body. There we go. And then hue saturation. Just shift the hue a little bit. Make it a little bit more pink and a little less saturated. All right, now what do? Eraser. Erasing the top layer from the layer underneath. We only affect one layer at a time. We want to understand what we're doing with a soft edge brush, 0% hardness. And I recommend using your tablet so that you have a pressure sensitive size for that brush. All right, so first with that 100% opacity, I obliterate that hard edge where it overlaps. Good. Now I can start transitioning with lower opacities because I do have enough overlap now for these feathers. Pretty silly looking. So that's what we've got. Now if I want a really hard edge, I can go to my lasso with its 2-pixel feather, and I can just kind of draw, just like I did with my landscape, like in my foreground, an organic edge on these feathers cutting in. And that 2-pixel feather will help to blend it. Like that. Looks pretty believable. I could do the same thing with this chicken, bless you, but it's a little too, I don't have enough overlap, I think, to get exactly what I want. So if I kind of draw that, especially to cover up a lot of this parsley, and then delete it, you see there's big gaps there. But it kind of shows me what I'm thinking about, what will work. All right, now I'm going to turn on the head, and now we got to blend the head into the body. And again, it'd be nice to have a little bit more overlap than we have. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out this edge on the beak. So where is the beak? It's right there. And use that eraser. Nice and big. This is like putting the engine into the chassis of the car. First at 100%. There we go. And find the border that makes sense. And sure enough, the head covers up quite a bit of the wing, actually. So now if I'm happy with all the internal coloring of the head, which I am, I'm now going to do this. I'm going to take that whole folder and I'm going to duplicate it, Command J. I'm going to turn off the folder, and then on the duplicate folder, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say merge the group. So that will flatten the group into one layer, which means I can erase away from all of it and obliterate that hard edge. And that helps me trim it out. So these are going to be my challenges. These little spots, and we all kind of have them, where we want texture where we don't have them. And I can't get it by erasing and removing because I don't have enough overlap of these organic textures. So I'm going to save my work. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the same thing with the body, going to duplicate that group, Command J, right click on it, and merge that group. So now I just have two layers, even though I have all the resource layers underneath. Whoops. So I've got a body layer, and then on top of it a head layer. And this is what I'll use to cut them out. But on top of this, I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call it a new tool. I'm going to do it all in caps, clone stamp. So when you put a car together, you've just put the engine in. It has all these like dents and it's scratches and gaps that need to be filled in. And you use something called Bondo when you're like repairing it to smooth it out. It's like a cement you can put over everything and then polish and paint. So clone stamp is a way we can Bondo these gaps in putting our creature together. So how does clone stamp work? Well, it's 2 above the eraser. We want the clone stamp tool, not the pattern stamp tool, which is in that same drawer. Click on the clone stamp, then look at the settings above. And I'm going to set it to be 100% opacity. Think of this as a reverse blending eraser. So we're going to use it at 100% opacity. We're going to use it fairly large and 0% hardness, just like we use the eraser. But I'm going to sample it from all layers. All right? And I'm going to turn off the background gray. So, well, I'll leave the background gray on just so I can teach you how to use it. So what I want is to use this feather texture to fill in a lot of these gaps. Like I said, it's like a reverse eraser. So instead of taking it away, it's going to add it. So what I do is I find a place where I like the feather texture. So let's say right here. And I hold down Option. When you hold down Option, it will turn your cursor into crosshairs. And then you click just once. And now that tells the computer wherever you click and paint, just like if you were erasing, it will copy from that area that you targeted at 100% opacity with a soft edge. It's like Bondo, filling it in. So if I do that, click here, and then I paint here, it's going to fill in with that texture. But maybe I want more of these sharp edges. All right. Now, the way we want to learn to use it is on its own layer. So we're never replacing pixels as we go. And that way, then we can use our eraser from the clone stamp layer and use it to blend, to get rid of hard edges, just like before, right? And then at any time, fill them back in with more clone stamping. So if you're wondering how I can get a transition between this brown fur and these white feathers, this is how. Now I'm going to use my eraser, because everything's soft. I can now go to a lower opacity and start blending these. stepping it down. But I got to watch where my overlaps are, so I don't move too far too fast. Like so. Now, how can I do that to fill in this gap? Well, this is interesting because I can use the clone stamp, same layer floating on top of everything, but I want to find feathers that are going in the right direction. So let's see. I'm going to use this bunch of feathers here. So I'm going to hold down Option and then start painting like that. But I want to reverse that direction. So what can I do? Well, it's on its own layer, right? So I can lasso just that clone stamp I just did and then transform it and flip it. So I don't need to just, bless you, copy paste these. I can warp them. I can change their direction. I can really extend and create new content that then I can very easily erase back from to reveal the beak. And to start transitioning into that chicken arm. And I can use my lasso with the 2-pixel feather if I want to kind of cut out something that's a little bit sharper. All right. Like getting dressed up for the Met Gala. Paying attention to all those details. So what is the clone stamp actually doing? Well, on its own, this is all I've used it for. To bring those two little textures. That's why I like to mark it red. But that helps seams it, because without it, there's those big gaps. Next, I am going to merge all of these together. The head, the body, and the clone stamp. Select them all, layer, merge layers. Remember, I've still got all my components underneath. All those individual layers. But now that they're merged, I can start cutting out the outside edge. Sometimes I'll need to clone stamp it, which I can just do right on the same layer, like here. I'm going to sharpen up my brush a little bit, clone stamp, and just cut into that wing with that feather texture that isn't underneath it to erase out. But from there on out, I can just use my lasso with a 2-pixel feather if you're at full resolution. Remember to always check your image size. And I can just cut out my creature. So with this kind of chicken wing, as bumpy and textured as it is, it's not a soft texture. So I can just delete and use that feathering to kind of bite in at the edge and get a pretty believable edge with my lasso. Remember, because I have that 2-pixel feather, the more I hit delete, the more it will bite away and soften just right at the edge. And I do it in little chunks like this. And I get to make the shape I want of these little fried wings. And now it's all in one combined layer, so I can go right into the feathers and kind of cut that shape out. I'm just shaking my hand a little bit to get that organic texture. Like that.